Hey, got something really cool I wanted to run by and let you know what's going on. So I'm starting a group that will start taking a deep dive into each one of these episodes. So we'll collectively come together and talk about the shows, talk about the guests. I'll be bringing back some of the guests to do some Q&A sessions and really take a further dive into their story, their journey, the episode, talk about, maybe some of the things you wish I would have asked on the episodes, do some Q&A sessions and the like. As a friend put it to me, it's really like a book club, but for the podcast. So a couple times a week, we'll go in, we'll break down the favorite shows of the week, and have cool discussions around everything that we've heard, we've learned, and want to know about their journey. Some of these guests will come in and they'll teach part of, what makes them awesome at what they do. And then, as always, I'll be providing regular value and content in this group. It's really cool because this only is going to cost $5 a month to join this group. And you'll be able to come in, interact with everybody else in there. So I'll put a link right in the show notes for this that you can jump in, come have a conversation with us, and we will really deep dive into each one of these episodes and help us all rise up together. Thanks for tuning in, guys. It's going to be a great show today. Having the show wasn't something I started out to do. But the day I found out somebody wanted to really sponsor the show was a really, really cool experience. So, guys, I want you to take some time to go check out Point Blank Safety Services and their new nonprofit, Blue Family Fund. These guys are doing some really, really cool things. And Stacy McGovern, who's the CEO over there, has been a dear friend, and she was a guest on the show. But these guys are literally taking, the off-duty officers and putting them out in security guard role. And here's what's cool about it is, as they're protecting our lives, they don't make a whole lot of money in that regard. No first responders are paid for the value they provide for our safety and our health and taking care of us. So these guys, Stacy and her team over at Point Blank Safety Services have really found a cool way to give back to these officers by helping them provide an additional income so they can continue to support and protect us. So do me a favor, guys. Seriously, go check out pointblanksafety.com and then go look at their nonprofit, which is Blue Family Fund. Now, this nonprofit was created because of the success of Point Blank Safety Services. They wanted to give back to the families of fallen officers and be able to give scholarships away to the families of current, police officers. So do me a favor. It would mean the world to me if you would go out and help support this show by supporting Point Blank Safety Services and their nonprofit Blue Family Fund. Just tell them Donnie has sent you. You heard it on Donnie Success Champions, and Stacy will take a tremendous and amazing care of you. Thanks, guys.
Hey guys, it's another freaking kick-ass Friday. I'm looking forward to this one. This is going to be kind of a unique episode on Kick-Ass Fridays. And the only reason I say that is I'm going to be talking about momentum. And I'm going to share for you one of the greatest vacations we ever went on in life. I talked about it last Friday in Ireland. But I'm also going to talk a little bit about how going on that trip disrupted the momentum of my company and the things I had to do to get everything back and moving forward. So enjoy this episode, guys. It's all about how do you keep momentum? So, momentum. Man, let me tell you, it's a crazy, crazy thing. I talked about momentum a lot of times when I was doing sales training, and I was working with individuals, helping them get better in their sales career or helping them manage their sales teams. There was just a lot of times that I talked about how much momentum impacted your business. But as I often find, once you start running a business, you get a completely different perspective on things. You get a completely different insight on what you thought the definition of something was to what it really actually is. And that's been my experience ever since I opened up Success Champion. And I keep telling everybody is every theory or thought I had on business prior to becoming a business owner are just absolutely wrong. Every time I thought, being a business owner would be X, it ended up not even being a letter in the alphabet. It's just a different mindset that it takes to be a business owner. And here's the funny thing about mindset is I struggle often when some guru or somebody tells me, hey, this is how you change your mindset or this is what it does, because I don't always wrap my head around it. And for me, the reason I don't wrap my head around it is because I don't understand it until I experience it. That's probably just maybe my learning style. Maybe you experience the same thing. But until you do it and get your hands on it, it's very difficult to wrap your head around something. But when I say you've got to be a completely different mindset to be a business owner, here's what I mean. The person that you are before you become a business owner, I want you to erase that whiteboard image of yourself and get ready to start over. And the reason being is, yes, you're going to take some knowledge. Yes, you're going to take some skills. Yes, there's going to be things that you take along with you on the journey. But you better get ready to completely just rebuild yourself. For me, it's like going through Marine Corps boot camp. They want to break you down to nothing and then rebuild you into what they need to be able to move forward in life. And that's what it's like for me going from a employee mindset to a business owner mindset, because the guy I was just over a year ago is damn sure not the same guy sitting here talking to you now, because I've had to evolve. I've had to evolve my thoughts, my mind, my behaviors, my skill sets. I have had to literally transform and become a better version of myself. But it's not something that I would have conceived, believed, or thought I would have had to do prior to starting my own business. I had the fun privilege of sitting down with an old mentor of mine, former business partner, great dude, a guy named Scott Sherwin. And, we were just talking about, the times when I worked for him and then we were business partners and going through that process. And I enjoy telling him that the guy now would have been a hell of a lot better partner, a hell of a lot better employee, and a damn sure better sales guy had I known half the crap that I know now. And I think that's, with everything in life is once you look back, you're like, dude, if I could go back to high school knowing what I know now, that kind of stuff that people say all the time. But it's amazing how awesome of a teacher experience is, and how much I'm embracing failure as the greatest teaching tool in the world. I've got a speaking engagement coming up, and I can't wait to get in front of the room and walk them through some of my failures. Because as I'm learning is, people have always said stories are the greatest teaching tools of all times. And I think they're right, but I want to put a caveat on that and say failure stories and how you overcame them are the greatest teachers of all times. And then it's about going and getting, punched in the face by life. Go get punched in the face by business and learn from it. Because as I've done this, and as I've moved forward with my business, it's really wild to watch how much my mind changes when I get stacked up against it and the choices I make. And how quickly I'm learning that the things I did as an employee, as a sales guy, I can't have that same mentality and do the same things that I did back then, because my business will fail. I mean, if you've ever been in a sales role, you may bust your ass, all week long, but come Friday, come that Friday afternoon, 3:00 or 1:00, right? Like, dude, I put in a hell of a day. I'm done for the day. I'm just going to go home, right? I'm going to go play golf. I'm going to go to the bar. Yeah, you don't get that luxury as a business owner. I mean, you could. You absolutely, you could. You're not going to be in business for very long. And that's the whole point of this episode, is talking about how much momentum impacts your business and what happens when you lose it. All the way up to us going to Ireland, which is just an amazing trip that I'll keep talking about for a while. Business was really, really, really kicking for me. I had a really large deal come through, working with a university. I was going out to speak and do some personality assessments with them. I had a ton of new clients coming on with the social content stuff, and those were working like clockwork, and they were moving forward. And the podcast was doing fantastic. That's the only thing that didn't get affected by this whole momentum shift, was really the podcast. But that's due because, Joe Phelan, the guy who edits my show, he kept the podcast going while I was out of the country. So I owe him one. So Joe, you'll probably have a bottle coming to you at some point, which is fun. He edits the show, so he just gets to hear that. So there's no secrets when you want to, say thanks to a guy who edits your show. But the crazy thing is, right before going into Ireland, I was in a really cool mental space. I had business coming in. I had clients lined up. I had momentum. And the vibe of the company, and what I mean by the vibe is, there's days you wake up and you just feel like you own it, right? You just feel like, today is going to be a good day. And then there's days you wake up and you're like, shit, I just want to roll back over and go to bed. And my company was in that state of mind of, this is going to be a good day. We're going to kick some ass. And I left the business to go to Ireland completely in that thought process of, I've got enough momentum to carry me through this time, these couple weeks we're out of the country. And it was going to move forward. But when I came back, the company had the vibe of, I just want to roll back over. And here's why. Prior to going to Ireland, there was a lot of activity, mainly on my part. I was doing a lot of things. I was, networking. I was doing some speaking. I was catching up with old clients, old friends. I was reaching out for more podcasts. But about a day before going to Ireland, I didn't recognize it was happening, but I started slowing down. And I think, as I look back on it, I was getting, prepared to go. I know that I wanted to turn off a little bit in Ireland, but you can't fully turn off as a business owner. And let me just tell you that. Part of momentum is, if you stop being a business owner, you're out of business. You cannot shut it off. Just throwing that caveat in there. But as I was getting geared up to go to Ireland, I think I went back to that sales guy mentality. Because, when you're a sales guy for a company, and let's say you're going on vacation, there's usually other employees and things in place to help you take care of your clients and whatnot. I mean, when I sold commercial printing, when I sold sales training, when I worked in the franchises, when I worked in HVAC, all of those times, if I walked away, somebody else could fill that role. Now, they couldn't necessarily always step up and do it like I did it, because nobody can be me and I can't be them. But there was always somebody there to keep the things rolling. And in the last company, the sales training company, if one of us trainers were out, another trainer would step in, and it always seemed to work that way. But, this was the first real major vacation I've taken since I, started my company, and I didn't really have the thought process that while I'm out, nobody's here. Now I'll go back. Joe, was going to take care of the podcast, and he did an awesome job. But nobody was going to keep the prospecting behaviors going. I did play around in social media, and I put posts and comments out. But nobody was reaching out and interacting with people and doing some of the prospecting behaviors, or doing the sales things, or doing things to grow the business while I was away. I mean, it's a solo shop. I mean, I am a complete solopreneur. Now, I have awesome vendors that I outsource things to, but this is all on me. And I didn't fully embrace the gravity of that when I left. Now, the other things that happened is I didn't fully embrace the time difference as well. Ireland's 6 hours ahead of, Texas. So as I was getting out there, even though I was 6 hours ahead, the time gap of when you sleep, when you wake, all that, I wasn't fully prepared for that as well. So, here's kind of what happened. Is we leave for Ireland, and my mind completely switched to I'm in vacation mode, but only retained about 5% that I needed to keep my business going. And that switch, although was really awesome, and I got to spend time with Elizabeth and got to enjoy the vacation, it removed the vibe of my company. I went from the guy who's ready to wake up and kick ass to the guy who wants to roll over and go back to sleep. And, I did that for 7.5, 8 days of the trip. Because I had the thought before I was going to go over that while in Ireland, I'm going to meet as many people as I can to tell them about the podcast so I can grow the Irish audience. And as I look back, I really only told less than 5 people about the podcast. And it was almost like the business owner side of my brain just turned off. And it was like, okay, you're just going to go be vacation guy right now, which is good and healthy. But when you're a solopreneur, business owner guy can't turn off. Business owner guy can't slow down. And that's what I did. I tell you, it made for a very relaxing vacation. We hung out all day, got to spend some real time together, weren't on our phones, talking to each other. So for our relationship, it was beautiful. We really bonded, Elizabeth and I, on that trip. And that was a very, very, very cool thing. But I didn't have the right things in place to fully be that guy. I was being that guy without having assets to take care of the momentum of the company. And I love the analogy that I've heard over the years, but it's like moving a flywheel. If you don't know what a flywheel is it's a part on a car, or they use it as part of a lever mechanism, but it's this huge round gear that takes a little while to get it moving, but once you get it moving, it'll go all out. It's also another analogy, and this is one's for you, Pops. It's like moving a train. Now imagine you're sitting at a railroad track and you got a train at complete stop. If you think about that train, it's just sitting there. And you're waiting for it to, of course, get through the tracks. Well, as it begins to move, you get excited. You're like, all right, here it goes. And, you're at 10 minutes and I'm out of this thing. Well, it starts to move. It gets about 12 cars past you, and it stops again. Now, in your mind, 2 things happen. One, You're like, son of a bitch. Can't this thing get out of my way? And then the second thing you realize is, dude, it just took 5 minutes to go 200 yards, and I still got a mile of train behind it. When that train stopped that second time, that's what happened to my business. Is I had all of this momentum whooshing me forward because that train was running at about 75, 80 miles, or 80% at capacity, and it was whooshing down the tracks. But when I went to Ireland, it started to slow down to go through that railroad crossing. I can hear Dad now. He's probably correcting me how I'm saying this because I'm probably screwing up his trains. But and it started slowing down. And interesting is for about 7 days of the trip, that train got to damn near a full stop. I don't think it completely stopped moving forward, but it got to a slow stop. It didn't completely move forward. I mean, the podcast was still going out there, which gave it momentum, and I was still posting, things I do in the Facebook groups and Instagram and social media stuff, but it definitely slowed down as far as the outreach and things my company should be doing. So I realized it day 7, maybe day 8 on the trip that I was losing momentum in the business. And I realized I was getting into that sluggish, there you go, mindset that I wanted to just roll back over and go to bed or go back to bed. And that sluggish mindset was now like the train trying to churn through a mountain of snow. Right? So picture, a big old steam engine with 100 boxcars or coal cars behind it, trying to use that front portion of the train to push through 6-8 feet of snow. It was literally like moving a mountain, because I'm in Ireland trying to enjoy a vacation, and I realize that my company is not powering forward and moving forward, and there's not a lot I can do about it. Yes, I mean, there could be, but as a solopreneur, you're trying to save money because phone calls are going to be 25 cents a minute. And the trick was, there was nobody really to call to say, hey, can you kick my company in gear and get the momentum rolling, right? It was up to me to figure it out. So day 8, I started really gearing back up and getting into the social media, start doing the outreach, but I was already up against it. Because all that momentum, all that force of the train that was pushing forward got stopped, and now I'm literally sitting in the cab of that train, figuratively, and trying to push the snow out of the way, feeding enough coal to the damn thing to pull all of these boxcars up a snow-covered mountain. And I remember we get on the plane to come back, and my mind starts churning, right? And it's like, okay, we got to get back in the game. We got to keep going. We got to get momentum running. We've got to start pushing forward. And that's when it really fully hit me. This is what it means to be a business person. This is what it means to be an entrepreneur, is you don't turn it off. And I go back to when I first went to work for Scott Sherwin, is a few months into working with him, I said, hey, Scott, I love your passion for sales training and what you do, but when do you turn off? When do you turn off the guy that's always prospecting, or the guy is always talking about his business? And I remember him looking at me and goes, I don't know what you mean. I said, don't you just go home on the weekends and just forget about business and relax? And he said, absolutely not. And I was dumbfounded because my sales guy mind just couldn't wrap my head around that. And he said something close to the words of, Donnie, when you're a business owner, there is no off switch, right? There is no walking away from it. It becomes you. It is you. And I'm not saying your business defined you, but I am saying that if you're a business owner, then you better have a handle on your mindset and make sure your mindset is a business owner and not a sales guy. So we came back to the United States and we landed, and now I realized my routines were out of whack. And I'm huge on routines. I think two of my greatest assets are routines and discipline, because when I say I'm going to commit to something, I commit. And my routines just become a strength of mine. And so I realized as I got back that not only did I have holes in portion of my business, but I had to get my routines going again because they hadn't been done. And for me, routines are like the coal that feed the fire in the boxcar of the train. Not the boxcar, sorry, Dad. In the engine of the train. So the coal, it has to get thrown in a box, and for me, that's the routines. And I realized while in Ireland, I didn't journal. I turned that portion off. I realized that, I was doing some social media posts, but I wasn't engaging in all the social media platforms like I had. I wasn't reaching out to people. I wasn't looking for speaking engagements. I wasn't at networking opportunities. So all of these behaviors I had in place to turn my business into a successful business had just stopped. And now I had to get them back up and going. And I started cranking. I started getting the coal going, but it almost felt like the coal was missing from the box. And it was like I had to go to the back of the train to a coal car sitting all the way in the back to refill my coal bucket and go back up because my mental game was off. My entire business owner mindset that I was grooming was not at full capacity. So I had to get it geared back up again. And, I went to an after hours function once I got back and ran into a bunch of good old friends. And I don't think a soul noticed. But I can tell you during that meeting, I was so off my game, meaning I just knew there was more that I should be doing and I knew that was a place I needed to be. I knew at that networking event, that was a place I needed to be out amongst people because that was like throwing a chunk of coal into the fire. And that event did help me re-trigger the business owner mindset. But at that event, I was fighting my own mental game of, all right, what do I do next? What's my next step? How do I get, things moving and grooving? And interestingly, like I said, I don't think anybody noticed, but I remember that drive home going, okay, we have to go all in. We've got to get geared up. And that next day was a flurry of activity. I woke up, I journaled, I, got social media going. I started prospecting. I started reaching out. I set some really, really good appointments. I, followed up with some clients. I reached out to some potential business opportunities, and the train started moving, and it started to push forward, albeit still sluggish. And as it continued to push forward, I started seeing things in my business. And some of the things that I started seeing was I needed to add some processes, and I needed to add some structure to the way I was doing things so I could have a better handle on deliverables and things that I'm giving and putting out on a regular basis. And here's the cool thing. I don't know if the train's fully up to speed yet, but it is damn sure moving. I feel like I'm still climbing a mountain by all means, but it's almost like there's another engine on the back of the train starting to help push me up the mountain because my mind's getting right again, right? The momentum of my company is starting to go, and everything's slowly starting to move forward and progress forward. But I'll tell you that momentum is so much in your business. It accounts for so much in your business, mainly because it requires so much work to get it back up and running and gunning. So here's some of the things that I've put in place to make sure that I can maintain momentum with all aspects of my life, right? So, number one, huge lesson learned, and I don't know why I stopped when I went on vacation. Just dumb, I guess. I'm not calling myself dumb. I'm just saying it's a dumb maneuver, is you can't stop journaling. And which is so wild because for me to say that, because every other trip Elizabeth and I have gone on, I've journaled, and I don't understand why I turned it off. And it's almost like a part of me wanted to stop being a business owner for a moment. And I think that's partially what happened, but lesson learned. And once you become a business owner, you're all in. There's no, I don't know. It's like going back to some of the commercials you've seen on TV where a mom walks in, she's got the sniffles really bad, and she's like, I can't come into work today. And then the screen flashes over and there's a baby standing in the crib. And she's not talking to a boss. She's trying to tell her kid that she's not coming into work today, and it was a funny spoof. But, just like being a parent with a kid, which I don't have any experience with, and the only thing I can believe is you can't turn off being a business owner. You just have to take care of it. And so journaling was a huge one for me, is I can't stop journaling. I can't turn that off because that's part of my routine of getting the days right. Part of my routine of getting everything functioning and moving right. The other thing is I've got to put more assets in place and more things in place. So, I've got to be able to find more creative ways to do the outreach and things that I'm doing. And the other thought process I had alongside of that is I've got to have so much momentum going, which I think I was only about 75%, 80% momentum before I went on vacation. But I've got to have so much momentum going that the train can slow down enough, and get down to a speed where maybe somebody running along could jump on with it on the train and go and help maybe then feed the firebox. But there's got to be things in place that it keeps that train moving forward. It can't turn off. Because when that train gets down to that stop, what happened to me is my mind went to shit. My mental game got tough. And it was like, the self-doubt creeped in. The thoughts creeped in. Can I do this? Is this the right move? Can I push through this? Can I make this work? Am I going to completely fail? When your train is stopped, all of that creeps in. And let me tell you, when those thoughts creep in, it's like somebody threw ice water or nitrogen on your freaking, cold box of your damn train. And that's really difficult. And the only way I found to power through that, just, for a tactical advice, is to start moving forward. Start reaching out. Start getting in conversations. Get back around the people that inspire you, which is another huge, huge thing that I've put in play as part of my business. Is now if I go on vacation or when I go on vacation, prior to leaving, I will be setting strategic appointments with some of my collaborators, mentors, and friends that I really rely on for advice. So I know I'm coming back and have to be somewhat on my game. I was recently in a couple of conversations with a buddy of mine that I really bounce a lot of ideas off of. And it's always that awesome feeling when you walk away going, all right, got to up your game. You got to keep up with him. You got to keep running. You got to keep finding those people and those relationships and those conversations. And, it's just a cool feeling to know, that you can get in those conversations. But if you're going on vacation, you've got to put those things in place. And so now part of my repertoire is if I find myself going somewhere where I could potentially lose momentum on the business, that I must schedule, conversations with people that are going to help me get my mojo back and get able to help me push forward. The other thing is the activity flurry before I leave has got to increase, which means I got to have prospect appointments and meetings in place prior to going on that vacation, that trip, that adventure, whatever else. I've got to have those things in place to ensure that I'm thinking about them, interacting with them, and that I know I'm coming back to them, right? It's like you're forcing the train to function while you're not there. And I do know for a fact that as my company grows, I'll be able to bring on employees and bring on people to help with some of this stuff. But until then, I've got to continue to figure out, assets and ways to keep the train moving forward and push through all of the mental game. Because I chalk this up as another phenomenal lesson learned on my journey of learning how to run a business. But that momentum shift is a bitch to move. I mean, it's really, really, really tough to get that momentum back once your train is completely slowed down to damn near a stop. And it's interesting. Now that my train is running again and momentum is swinging again with my business, opportunities are popping up again, which means my mindset's getting right again. Because when your mindset's hell and you're all the self-doubt and all that creeps in, you shut off the universe delivering its goods. And for me, if you're running a train, it's like the universe is running a parallel train to you. And when it's fully running, dude, it's like they're just chunking opportunities and things at you from one train to yours. And when it's sluggish, the universe just can't function and throw you opportunities because your mind is repelling anything that can open doors for you. And it's just wild how quickly the ideas and the business and the opportunities and things have shifted and grooved and are moving forward. So really, guys, the biggest thing with all this is, and this is what I've been learning on my journey, and that's how I like about Kick-Ass Fridays is I can take you guys through the things I'm learning and hopefully provide you guys, just some cool things that you can apply to your business. But, I've learned that there's no Saturday and Sunday in being a business owner. If you run a business, you know what I mean. If you don't, you better learn it, But I've also learned that every day is a chance to get that momentum rolling. And it's a chance to add fuel to your fire. And that routine's got to kick in place. So maybe it's listening to podcasts every morning. Maybe it's journaling every morning. Maybe it's working out. But whatever it is, those routines have to get in place so that you can keep the company moving and progressing forward and keep everything just humming along. I'll do another episode, I'm sure, on what happens when your train stays at half speed and doesn't keep going. But, For now, let's just focus on how do you keep momentum and keep ramping up and keep going. And I'll end it with this, is to make sure you have momentum is you got to have the right behaviors in your business, right? Everything that you could be doing to grow the business is some sort of behavior, and you got to have those going. You got to have your collaboration conversations with mentors and friends, other people that are trying to go for it in life, people that when you sit across from challenge and motivate you to move forward and do more. You got to journal. You got to get those thoughts and those momentum, or those thoughts and those feelings and everything else out of your head so they don't fester and start whooping on you. And then finally, you have got to become that guy, that gal. You got to become that business owner and fully step into it. And then get consistent, right? Once you step into it, you must stay consistently in it and consistently go for it. So I hope this helps you out, guys. And I hope this keeps you moving forward with momentum in your life, because it's doing wonders and really well for mine. And I'm glad things are bounced back and we're running and gunning again. All right, guys. So, wow, thanks for listening to this whole episode. I really, really enjoyed you guys coming along with the journey for me. Want to tell you about a couple of things. Due to the success of this show, more and more people have started reaching out to me about starting a podcast. So, on that vein, we just launched a Facebook group. And if you go to Facebook and you type in "So You Want a Podcast," right? So that's the name of the group, So You Want a Podcast. And you just go to Facebook, you search groups, type in "So You Want a Podcast," and come hang out with us. If you have any desire to get in the podcasting game, I will be walking people through everything I've done to get to a top 100 podcast and all the steps along the way. You can jump in. I will be doing Facebook Lives, trainings, all kinds of things to help you get to a point that where you can launch your own show. So if you're interested in coming along for the ride, come hang out with us at So You Want a Podcast on Facebook, and let's have some fun.
I wanted to make sure before we get out of here that you knew what we were doing with social content. What we found was because of the podcast, we have a unique way of helping you get your social content out on a very easy way. What we're doing is we're interviewing people, and from that interview, we will capture a lot of information that will then be turned into videos, memes, articles, all things you can use for your social content. I know, like for me, one of the biggest struggles I had was, what do I put out there? What do I say on a regular basis? Well, we'll help do all that for you. So if this is at all of interest to you, reach out to us and let us help you grow your social media channel. I can tell you I did this for my business, and my social media is completely taking off. My Instagram, since I started doing this, jumped to over 10,000 followers, and it continues to grow. So if this is at all of interest to you, check the bottom of the show notes for the link that says, "Get my social content done right now."